The University of Calgary is among the latest victims of so-called ransomware. The school revealing it paid $20,000 to hackers who infected its computers with the malicious software that works by locking data, restricting access until a ransom is paid. A similar cyber attack recently targeted an Ottawa dog charity, but it managed to negotiate with the hackers who agreed to lower their demands.
It just galled us to have to do this, but we had to get our files back. If you can live without the files, do it. Don't pay it if you don't have to, because you really are supporting these people.
Well, once again this evening, Graham Williams, our tech expert, is here to guide us through this. We're going to talk about the university situation in a moment, but first of all, you're saying this is a kind of problem, this ransomware, that affects a lot of ordinary people.
It absolutely does. And what we're seeing is ordinary people are getting hit by this through things like pirated movies and downloaded files. Essentially, you download this malicious payload, you run the file thinking that it's a movie, it locks up your data, and now you're stuck having to pay to get that back.
So we're going to talk about individual problems in a moment, but let's get back to the University of Calgary. So how do you think it happened here?
Well, there's one of two things that could have happened. Obviously, a user on the network who probably had some privileges, administrative privileges, that they shouldn't have had, access to a file like this. And it could be that they downloaded it, or it could be that it was sent to them with the malicious intent of infecting that network. The second thing that could happen is it may have been an inside job. This could be somebody who did want to infect the network because there is a payoff attached to it at the end.
We keep hearing that everything can be tracked on computers, so if it were somebody who did it on the inside, who put, say, a thumb drive in their office computer, wouldn't that be easily detectable?
It's detectable, but not necessarily easily. There's a lot of computers to go through, and there are a lot of log files to go through as well. And there's the possibility that the people who are involved here will not give them the decryption keys for the logs that are involved, basically erasing that trail.
And it's quite possible that the people responsible here, the bad guys, could be offshore.
They could be anywhere in the world. I mean, we've seen a lot of attacks like this come from Russia and from different parts of Europe. It's a very easy attack to propagate from anywhere. So basically, you send that file out. You don't even need to set foot on campus.
Somebody from the University of Calgary was saying, you know what, $20,000 wasn't a bad deal here when you think of the hours it would have spent the university to try to deal with this. Is that all you can do in this situation, is just kind of throw your hands up and say, I got to pay the ransom?
After this has happened, generally, especially when we're looking at a large network like a university, when they've got a lot of research going on, it is going to be a lot less expensive to pay that. That's why this works. It's why it's so profitable. We've seen it happen with hospitals, where those networks, they would be $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 to restore piece by piece as you're restoring from backups. So when somebody asks for $20,000, they pay it in a heartbeat.
And we have the story in Ottawa of a small charity that actually hired a computer expert, and one of the things that expert did, apparently, is negotiated a better deal. It just seems unseemly when you think about it, but what's your advice? I know you're a computer guy, but what's your advice on trying to negotiate?
Well, I think that's very much a specific case. It is a charity, and at the end of the day, the people who are locking your files up, they do want to get paid. If there's the possibility that the charity doesn't have, say for example, $1,600, but they do have $800, he's probably going to want to get that money, so would be willing to make that deal.
Let's finish with the individual cases, because the big institutions will have experts to deal with this. But the average person watching, they have their home computer. Is there a surefire way they can prevent themselves from having their data locked up by someone who wants to charge them ransom?
To prevent this really is going to require being very diligent about what you do with your computer. Don't run files from people you don't know. And even if someone sends you a file that they think is legitimate, reach out to that person separately and ask them, is this a file that we should be running?
Well, when you say don't run a file, so what does that look like when it comes in?
It could be anything. It could look like a movie. It could look like a photograph. It could look like a document. If somebody sends you something and you haven't asked for it, get in touch with them and say, did you send this before you actually open it up? The other big thing is backup. Essentially, these crypto lockers, they back up a current version, they lock up a current version of your files right now. If you have a backup before that happens, you can actually wipe your system and restore from that backup before the infection happens. That's a good way to get your stuff back without having to pay an exorbitant amount.
You make it sound easy. Is it that easy?
It can be. I mean, with both Windows and Apple, you do have the ability to have software. Apple has something called Time Machine that backs up literally every hour on the hour. So if you know that you got infected at 3 p.m. today, go back to 2 p.m. and restore the system from there.
All right, Graham, thank you very much.
My pleasure.